So there are a few steps that you have to do to sign in with Credential Manager and Firebase, right? When you choose the option on either this bottom shade or the button UI, the dialog UI, basically, what happens is that the user just granted you access to their credential, which is a credential object. And then you're going to take that credential object and extract the ID token from it. Once you extract the ID token from it, you can create a Firebase credential from that ID token, and that's the credential that you then use to sign in with Firebase. So it's 3 simple steps, so 3 lines of code from the moment that the user clicks on the option on Credential Manager. Now, the code to bring this Credential Manager to live is also pretty simple. So let me show you. So this is the first flow that we were talking about. And the first thing you need to do is create the ID option that you want to use. So for this flow that you see, you can see my cursor, right? Okay. So for this experience here, you create a Google ID option. And then there are a few parameters that we can use here that I think maybe Diego can talk about the parameters in more detail later. The service it's pretty straightforward if you already use Firebase, because we provide this default web client ID. If you have the Firebase SDK, you already have that. You don't have to worry about that. And there are a couple more options that you can add to this, like adding a nonce for increased security, and another option that I don't remember now from the top of my head. But yeah, so you create this request, this credential option, and then you create a request from that option, and then you send this request to Credential Manager, and then the result will contain the credential. So this, when you execute this piece of code, this is when the bottom sheet will be launched. And then when the user clicks on that, it goes to this line. So this is a async function, it's a suspend function. So it means this line will only execute when we have the result. And then we can extract the credential from that result. In order to run the second flow, which is the button flow, the only thing that changes is that you have a different option that you're going to create the request with. So instead of a Google ID option, you have a signing with Google option. And then same thing for the server client ID. And the rest of the code is pretty much the same. So literally the only thing that differs from for these 2 flows is the type of ID option that you want. The signing with Google option or the get credential option. And then the rest is the same. You create a request, you send this request to Credential Manager and wait for the user to click on the option so you can extract the credential. It is very straightforward. And then, so you can see, just so I can show you those extra 3 steps, this is the method that I'm calling on the view model once this happens. The onRequest result sends the credential to this this function on the view model. For some reason, quick pause, for some reason, my brain cannot say function. It always goes back to method, even though I've been working with Kotlin for years now. It always defaults back to method, which is what I learned in college many years ago.
Isn't it a method after all? I mean, it's on an object.
It is.
On a class, sorry.
No, it is, but it's much more common to hear Kotlin developers saying function, because it's literally fun.
Yep.
But I cannot get rid of method. It's just in my brain forever.
Yeah.
I think
I guess the main reason that it's called function is that fun makes a lot more sense than just abbreviating method to meth, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good call. So yeah, here in this function, what we're doing is we're checking if the credential that we just received is the type Google ID credential, because for this specific app, what I'm doing is adding signing with Google. So I need to check that this credential is a Google credential. And then I will call Google ID token credential create from, and then I create an ID token from that credential data. And then I call the service. My service file connects to Firebase. And then what I do on the Firebase side is call the Google Auth provider to create the Firebase credential and then signing with that newly created credential. So here it's a bit spread because my architecture is very like things happen in the UI, things happen in the model, things happen in the service. But if you were to have one single method, it would be 3 lines.
Where you set up the requests. Okay, so first of all, you define what kind of request you want to perform, right? So using those options there. Then you put together the request, and then you send it to the credential manager. And when you call on request result, that will pop up the dialog. Is that correct?
No, that pops
Oh,
up.
okay. So that will do it. Okay, get credential. I missed that. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So yeah, go ahead, Diego.
Yeah, and I think two additional details to call out. If you scroll down a little bit on the first request that you were showing, there is one parameter which is called set filter by authorized accounts.
Yes.
And that is very important. What that parameter does is that it only shows accounts that the user has previously used with signing with Google for this app. And so that way we can ensure that we're only showing accounts that the user has used and that they will be able to successfully sign in. Or if you prefer, you can not filter by authorized accounts and show all the accounts to the user that are available to sign in or sign up. And if the user chooses to use an account that has never been used on your app, then they will effectively create a new grant. So that's one important parameter. Our guidance usually is first call the API with that parameter set to true, so filter by authorized accounts, so that only accounts that have already been used with your apps are displayed to the user. And if you get a no credential exception, meaning that no account on the device has been used before for your app, then call back, and now this time without setting it to true, so that all accounts will be displayed to the user. So that's one important call out. I think it's very important to be mindful about that parameter and make sure that you are setting it in the right way.
Because this way you are saying only show the accounts that have been previously used to this app. So this is when I call this method for the first time, it picks up on the true here, and then it filters only the authorized accounts. If the user has never used this app before, therefore there's no available accounts to sign in straight away, we will hit this point. We'll get a no credential exception. And then that means no one has signed in before. Let's change the filter to false so we can have all the available authenticated accounts and providers shown in the Credential Manager UI, which is what's happening here. So if filter was true, then now we launch the bottom sheet again, the same flow, but this time we set the filter to false, which then will allow the user to have all their options there. And then from the next time they open the app on, this will be true again, but then we will receive an account from Credential Manager because we already used that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. And just to be clear, so in that catch phrase down there that you showed me, the method that you're calling, launch credman bottom sheet, that is the exact function that we are currently in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. So I've got that. Diego, I know that you wanted to launch into a second point, but I've got one other question that I'm desperate to know the answer to. Where is the information that the user has already used this application before stored? Is it stored locally on the device? Is it stored somewhere on Google's backends? And is there a way how I, as a developer, can reset this information, for example, in my own testing? Because I want to make sure that I can run through all the different states that my application can be in?
Yes, there is. So the information, and then Diego, correct me if I'm wrong, but the information is stored on the server side on Credential Manager itself, because it's literally like I will only get this information as a developer if Credential Manager throws me this exception, which makes me think Credential Manager is storing information.
Right. Well, yes, and a subtlety there. It's not actually Credential Manager like the Android API. It's the Google servers that have like the Google account that has what we call an active grant that sort of links the Google account with the app. And so when the user has used and consented to use their Google account to sign in with Google, in this case for the Notes app, there will be a relationship stored in the Google backend that will say, hey, the Google account for this user has consented to create this grant, and that information will be stored in the backend. Now, as a user, I can go to my account.google.com and then find the kind of third-party connections. That there is a settings page where I can see all the apps where I have used signing with Google and where I have existing grants. And if I want to clear that, it's possible to delete that, in which case, as a developer, I can go through all the testing scenarios and test like, hey, if I don't have a grant, how this will work. If I have a grant, how this will work, and so on and so forth. I can also mix and match things, etc.
Yeah, so you have a clear credential state. If that is a sign out, like if the user is not going to use that app anymore, you would ideally call the clear credential state to clear any stored credential sessions from that app. This one.
That one. Yeah. So you see that there in that request, we are adding at this point just a Google ID option, but that could be augmented with other options as well. I don't know, Marina, if you have implemented this, but maybe you could talk a little bit about how could we add passwords in here as well.
No, I actually haven't tried. I only use Credential Manager to sign in with Google. How would that work? Maybe.
Yeah, so basically the way it would work is that you would generate another option, like the one that you have above for Google ID. You would generate another one for passwords, and then you would add that to the request. And then when you send the request to Credential Manager, both passwords and Google ID tokens will be in the request and will be shown to the user if available. And that's quite nice, because at that point, the user will see all the available options in the request and will be able to sign in with that.
I think I just saw it when you first typed the line. I saw something about password. So add credential. I think you started.
Doesn't seem like the.
Oh yeah, there you go.
But that's full.
Oh no, but yeah, that's a hint. I don't think that's the right one. Anyway, I mean, it's in the documentation, so please check it out. And I guess in a future iteration, we can add this to the sample app as well. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I really like how Credential Manager and Firebase are growing closer together. They have been growing close together in the last year, which reminds me to share that now the documentation's one link to the other, which is really nice. I really like seeing how well these two frameworks, two platforms are working together. I did have something else to share and I forgot. It's going to come back to me. I have done this myself. It's my code. Let me send you.
Okay, so I'm sharing your browser window, but you're sending me a link?
I sent you a link, yeah. But
okay, first of all, here's the link to go to the identity landing page that Diego mentioned. And then for the Java code that Marina just found, I'm also going to paste it into the live chat. And
it's the one
we can see it on screen right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and you should probably increase the font size, Marina.
Oh, okay.
Almost impossible to read.
Is this good enough?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah. So if you go to this to the code samples, you can see the two different flows. So this is for the button. This is how you create a button option in Java. And this is how you create the bottom sheet option in Java. And then you you create the request for that option. And the launch credential manager method basically just gets that request and creates the credential manager UI, depending on the option that you chose. And then you need to do this slightly big piece of code to have to implement the on result and basically to override the on result and on error methods. And yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah. The 80s called and asked their callbacks back.
Yeah. And also you have the code for those 3 extra steps once you have the credential, which is check that it's type Google, then create the Google ID token from the credential data, and then with this credential data, create the Firebase credential and sign into Firebase. So for Java is slightly more than 3 lines, as I had promised before. But still 3 steps, just not 3 lines.
So Marina, here's some piece of feedback for the sample, it seems. Unknown in JVM target 21 in the Notes app.
Yeah, I am searching into this now, and I think it may be an Android Studio configuration based on what I'm searching now. Yeah, it seems like the runtime that you have for your JVM cannot run that code. Can you try going into Android Studio? If you open Android Studio and go into settings, there are the build tools where you can, if you go to build tools Gradle, you can choose the Gradle JDK, and then you can, if you choose maybe JetBrains runtime 17, which is available through Android Studio, you will be able to run that code. So it's a configuration on your Android Studio, basically. You just have to go to the build Gradle tools and change the runtime.